White Sox baseball on CSN Chicago is presented by State Farm. Sox are back home after a lengthy foray on the road. It's the first of a 6-game homestand, and it comes against the division rival Minnesota Twins. It is dog day at the ballpark. Thanks for joining us. Jason Benetti, Steve Stone along with you. And Minnesota has been better this year, an improved team, but they'll be without a key cog tonight.
Miguel Sano is not in the lineup. He's serving a 1-game suspension. That's pretty good news for Mike Pelfrey, who goes to the mound. The reason is that Sano hit 8 home runs and driven in 28 in just 29 games. So the big man in the middle is going to watch this one, and this is a good time to take advantage of his absence from the lineup, along with Brian Dozier, who is also not in the lineup tonight. And we'll see how that plays out. But if you're going to face the Twins, it's best to face them without Sano.
Sano suspended. We'll tell you why as the game wears on. Sox offensively are getting quite a boost from a couple guys.
Avisail Garcia and Matt Davidson have done a great job against the Twins this year. In fact, Avi has done especially well, hitting .500 against them, and he's terrorized their pitching staff. He's hit safely in 5 of 6 games, doing just about everything right against the Twins and having just a remarkable start to this 2017 season. Matt Davidson has also done a nice job against him at 5 for 14. He's hit a home run, driven in 2, hitting .357. He's in the lineup tonight. So a couple of right-handed thumpers to go along with Jose Abreu, who's been red hot.
You remember Welcome Back, Cotter?
I do.
We basically have that twice on the mound today. 2 guys facing their former teams.
Always a little incentive when you're facing the team that either traded you away or released you or did whatever to get you to the next city. Hector Santiago has been terrific for them against our Sox at 4-1, a 1.40 ERA. This is his 7th start. Mike Pelfrey, on the other hand, was 1-1 in his career against the Twins with a 6.88 ERA in 4 starts. Last time out, he threw the ball okay. It wasn't great, but it was good enough. And hopefully, with the offense coming to life, as I hope they will be with the home cooking, things will work out well this evening.
It's one of your favorite days at the ballpark.
It is dog day, and I just love dog day.
Let's see some pooches on the way out, shall we? Hopefully this game is not rough for the Sox. Twins and Sox coming up.
The Toyota Time Sales Event ends May 31st. Hurry in today. Toyota, let's go places. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Illinois. Through it all. By Lexus, who encourages you to experience amazing. And by Miller Lite, the original light beer. Miller Lite, hold true.
Doggies of all kinds at the ballpark tonight. Last time we had dog day in this ballpark, the Sox set a world record for most dogs at a sporting event, 1,122 back in September of last year. Don't think we're going to clear that today unless you have 700 in your car.
No, and I have a few, but not quite 700, and unfortunately we will not break the record, but we will be knocking at the door, as they say.
First of 2 dog days at the ballpark this year as Ricky Renteria discusses the ground rules with Paul Molitor and the umpires today on a chilly day at the ball yard to start this 6-game homestand.
I think both of these teams should be very happy to be where they are in the standings at this point. If you gave the choice to both managers, Paul Molitor and Ricky Renteria, that 31 games into the season, they would be, respectively, the Sox at 500, Minnesota 1 game over, they would say, you know what, we'll take it and go from there. So they're both at that point, knocking at the door of the Cleveland Indians, and there you look at what it looks like in the early going. Both the Twins and the Sox playing pretty good baseball, along with the Tigers. The Royals having a very tough time, and the Indians haven't gotten things together yet offensively. But I assume when Edward Encarnacion starts to be Encarnacion again, they will put a little daylight between themselves in the division. In the meantime, you go out there, as the Sox have done, and you hustle every day.
Mike Pelfrey leads them out. 4th start of the year for Pelfrey, the former Twin and Tiger, facing his former team tonight at Guaranteed Rate Field as we give you the starting lineup for Paul Molitor's Minnesota Twins, a very patient bunch. They are without Miguel Sano, as we told you about. Joe Mauer leads it off, then Polanco, Max Kepler, the German-born left-hander, Vargas, then Rosario, who has been swinging a very hot bat, Escobar, Castro, Adrianza just up over from the Giants organization by way of Milwaukee, and Buxton batting 9th.
Let's take a look at the defense and how they're going to line up behind Pelfrey left to right, Melky Cabrera, Willie Garcia in center field with Abisail Garcia in right. Then it's Todd Frazier, Tim Anderson, Tyler Saladino, and Jose Abreu in the infield. Omar Narvaez, a late addition to this lineup. And our Lexus Experience amazing starting pitcher is Mike Pelfrey. 0-2 this year. This is 4th start. His ERA a touch over 5. And you always want to do well against a team that you spend a lot of time with, and Pelfrey did spend a lot of time with these Twins. The umpires for the game tonight: Dan Bellino behind the plate, Marvin Hudson at first, the crew chief Jerry Lane is at second, and Toby Bassner is at third. So on a cool night, and that's being kind here in May, the wind very much a factor. It's blowing toward the right field corner. And the Sox are very happy to be back at home for the simple reason that you play the majority of games on the road to this point. 19 of them away from Guaranteed Rate Field, only 11 at home. And that will be what this team will face in the early going. If they can stay afloat till the end of June, all of a sudden it becomes very home heavy. So they've thrown the ball around the infield, which means we're ready to play baseball and kick off this abbreviated 6-game homestand. And we welcome back Jason Benetti.
Hey, thank you, Steve. They have been long road trips and short homestands so far is the rule of the day. Sox with fewer home games than anybody in Major League Baseball. That will change, of course, this week, as the Twins are here for 3, then the San Diego Padres for 3 over the weekend as the Sox embark on interleague play. Mike Pelfrey, 33-year-old, to the 34-year-old Joe Mauer with strike 1, called by the Illinois native Dan Bellino.
For the first time this year, Joe Mauer is hitting in the leadoff spot because there's a few guys, Dozier and Sano, notably out of this lineup.
The leadoff spot has been changing significantly across Major League Baseball. We've even seen the Sox get into it with Melky Cabrera at the top of the card. And the role of the top guy in terms of getting on base is something that managers have started to lean on even more, even though they don't look like your regular leadoff man.
Well, there used to be a time when your smaller hitters, your contact hitters, were all leadoff men because they would take a lot of walks, and then they were looking to judge a leadoff hitter by a 400 on base percentage. Those days are gone. Now, more times than not, we're taking a look at a real good hitter in the leadoff spot, thinking he gets one more at bat than most of the guys.
First base, Abreu, and there is out number one. It's Mauer, the ground out to start the ball game. Sox come in with the second best ERA in Major League Baseball and the best in the American League at .335 opening play tonight.
What's been magnificent is the work out of the bullpen, because with a couple of injuries to Petrichkin and Putnam, last year was those injuries that really helped to scuttle things. This year, getting a lot of help in that pen, and the pen has been close to unhittable.
There's a strike called to Jorge Polanco, the young shortstop for Minnesota. And on that bullpen, we haven't seen the major blow-up by anybody, really, in the bullpen. You called upon to eat up an inning or two, and basically that's been done.
Well, there's been a couple of guys that have more than made up for the injured twosome, and that's notably Swarzak and Canely. They've both been close to untouchable and striking out just about everybody they face.
Two balls and a strike on Polanco, whose playing time may increase even more so with the trade of Danny Santana, who's been sent away by Minnesota to Atlanta.
They had a tough decision, and they designated Santana for assignment and then worked out a deal. So for Santana's sake, maybe he'll get some playing time. We certainly will see him because San Diego is coming in next, but he's just looking to get an opportunity. The Twins gave him a number of them. He just couldn't get it done.
Fouled away, and the count 3-2.
Excuse me, he was traded to Atlanta. And who we will see is Matt Caesar, who was also designated for assignment by the Chicago Cubs. He was traded to San Diego.
Padres started on okay ground but have fallen on some hard times, so we'll see San Diego over the weekend as this goes toward Abreu, and he scoops it up without much trouble for out number two.
That was a good play by Jose because the ball hit off the glove. He didn't panic. Came right back to him, then he made the play. And this took an odd hop, hit the heel of the glove, and rule of thumb for any first baseman: if you can make the play yourself, then don't flip it. The fewer throws you make, the better off you are.
Sox get it out with that by Abreu. In fact, nobody else has touched the ball other than Pelfrey so far. And Narvaez behind the plate, of course. Strike one to Max Kepler.
Kepler's another guy that can hit the ball very hard to the right side. With that in mind, Saladino back on the grass. We're seeing a lot of shifts. Not near as many in the outfield as the infield, but that's how it sets up with Anderson playing on the first base side of second and playing up the middle. And Frazier right in the middle of the second and third base bags.
You'd think it'd be distracting for the hitter to see those names above the heads of the players, but
they don't seem to mind.
Dog day here at the ballpark. Pooches getting to know one another.
What a beautiful husky.
Is that Butch?
I remember him. He was beautiful for about a half a season, and then things kind of fell apart for the big guy.
Is that in New York he had the good season?
He had, yeah, about half a year with the Mets.
Friends forever.
Dogs like the concession stands also.
On the ground, and Todd Frazier for out number three. 3 ground balls for Mike Pelfrey in the first. Sox will take aim at Santiago after this. Saladino at the top. Melky behind him. Jose Abreu hitting the ball very well here and basically everywhere else, too. Garcia, Frazier, Davidson, Anderson still occupying the 7 spot. Narvaez and Willie Garcia batting 9th.
Let's take a look at the defense and how they're going to line up behind Hector Santiago. It's Rosario, Buxton, and Kepler in the outfield with Escobar, Polanco, Adrianza, and Mauer in the infield. Jason Castro fills it up behind the plate, and our Lexus Experience amazing starting pitcher is former White Sox Hector Santiago. 3-1 this year, the ERA a fine 2.78. This is 7th start of the year.
By way of Newark, New Jersey, he throws ball number 1 to Tyler Saladino. Opponent's only hitting .226 against Santiago, who for his career has been a fly ball pitcher.
And there you look at the shift.
Trips left for Minnesota with Saladino at the plate.
I really agree with a shift on a power hitter. A guy that's just a contact hitter, it's hard to shift consistently on him.
He does go to the left side in the air, and this is Rosario in from left for out number 1. So here's Melky, who's been bouncing around the lineup some. He led off on the road trip. Those final 2 games in Baltimore, was the 2-hitter in the opener in Baltimore. Hit 3rd in Kansas City in the 3rd day of that series. And he takes strike number 1. 2 for 17 career against Santiago for Melky.
Santiago throws a lot of high fastballs. Jason told you he's a high fastball pitcher. And hitters are hitting under 100 against Santiago on high fastballs this year. So it shows you there's a little extra jump to it.
Check swing by Melky, and he did go. There's some extra life on the fastball for out number 2. Time for our picks to click tonight. Don't forget, you can, as always, vote online. WhiteSox.com/pick-to-click. The fans and I are together in the cellar. Steve has Tim Anderson trying to track down the crew, which went Saladino tonight.
Crew has been hot.
Hot crew.
Not that great on the road, but very strong at home, like many of us.
Have to look at those picks-to-click splits before the game. How's the crew against left-handed pitching?
They've been inconsistent.
It's a strike to Abreu, who has hit the ball very well recently. 10 multi-hit games, 2 or more in his last 16. And Santiago knocks this down, recovers, and scores the out. So a fly ball, a strikeout, and a ground out. And we are through 1 in a scoreless tie. All our viewers watching on Mediacom in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and in the Quad Cities. Got a chance to visit Cedar Rapids this basketball season on trips to Carver Hawkeye Arena.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Think about vacationing there in the off-season.
Maybe during the next road trip. You guys go to the West Coast, I'll go to Cedar Rapids.
Nice idea.
Pelfrey to Vargas to open the second inning, and there is ball number one. Close pitch, but the reach from Narvaez likely didn't get him the strike.
Vargas, a switch hitter. Much more power from the left side, although he's got big power from both sides. He was not active when we've seen the Twins in 2 different series. He is active now, and along with Sano, it's hard to believe there is another 2 guys quite that big hitting back-to-back in anybody's lineup.
All they would need is to somehow grab the rights to Aaron Judge.
I was going to say, the Yankees have Aaron Judge and the Pips. So if they had another guy close to his size backing him up, they would compare with Sano and Vargas.
I don't know. The Pips have 21 wins this year out of 30. Big rip by Vargas. By the way, talking about Narvaez behind the plate, Giovanni Soto was a late scratch today. Right elbow soreness took him out of the lineup, so that's why Omar is behind the plate. You may have seen an earlier lineup with Soto in. Two. He got him swinging. Strike 3. Pelfrey with his first strikeout.
This is a high fastball. It's up and out of the zone, but good late movement created the need to swing for Vargas, who thought it was going to be a strike before it just drifted away. Matt Davidson getting an opportunity to hit tonight against a team that he's done very well against in the early going.
He will come up in the second inning as part of that 4, 5, and 6 in the order for the Sox. Garcia, Frazier, and Davidson on the way.
We saw Rosario in the previous 2 series. He wasn't hitting anything. Now we see that batting average up at 294, gives you some sort of an idea how hot he's been. He's probably been as hot as any of the Twins hitter, and hotter than most of them.
Coming off his longest hit streak of his career. It was a 15-gamer. Prior long was 8 2 years ago.
Well, the Twins know he can play, although he's not going to be the run producer or the home run hitter that you need on the corners. But he's good enough to set the table for the other guys.
Minnesota coming off 2 of 3 in the loss column to Boston, including a 10-run 9th inning over the weekend by the Red Sox against the Minnesota bullpen. And that is a jam shot pop-up to the Sox middle infield. Tim Anderson for out number 2. Eduardo Escobar comes up from Minnesota, and he's playing because Miguel Sano is suspended for this game because of this event. It was dangerous for Matt Boyd.
Boyd threw behind him, and then a forearm to the chest protector is what got Sano suspended. Didn't exactly throw a punch, but you're not allowed to throw a flying elbow at anybody, and that got him the game. He appealed it, but the game was held up.
You know, the real surprise there is there was a lot of contact with the umpire in the post-play scrum, and it's surprising that nobody else got hit in terms of longer suspensions for that type of contact. In the air from Escobar, and Garcia's are there. It's Willie to make the catch, and Pelfrey has sent down 6 in a row to open the game.
debit card only available at your local Wintrust Community Bank. Go to wintrust.com/Sox to learn more. Wintrust Community Bank, member FDIC. Dog night at the ballpark. There's a guy in his Sox uniform.
I have a question. You're a dog lover. Where do you stand on dressing up dogs in jerseys and or red noses?
I think the dog with the jersey is a better look than that.
Rudolph joining us in his off time.
It's a good cause, by the way, that red nose. Yep.
It's good to know.
In case you ever go into Walgreens, you can purchase one.
Thank you. We can all be Rudolph together. Javi fouls it away, and talk about early in the season and the success that he's had. A .349 hitter, slugging .550, and the Twins have caught the brunt of that.
Yeah, hitting .500 against the Twins. They're playing him as an opposite field hitter, the big gap in left center.
This is on the ground. Adrianza from second, just under the wire to get Avi for out number 1. So you're okay with jerseys on dogs?
I don't think the dogs especially care for it, but yeah, it's seemingly okay depending on which jersey you're wearing.
Have you ever dressed up your pooches?
Only when they had assorted surgeries and you put a jersey on them or a shirt on them to make sure that they don't kind of mess around with the stitches.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's not for fashion sense.
Not for entertainment purposes, no.
Here's Frazier, 31-year-old third baseman. Takes a strike, 1-1.
Santiago is just plain a power pitcher. He's limited the amount of screwballs that he throws. He used to throw them quite a bit, then realized that he was pretty much tipping it off because he wasn't throwing it correctly enough to be deceptive. So he's gone to a straight change, and there you look at the career numbers, even up, 39 and 39.
He's also mentioned, in terms of throwing that screwball less and less, the strain on your arm.
There's a few different ways to throw it, and apparently he feels much better without throwing it. He's a little frustrated with the location of the last pitch. Tried to throw a fastball by him and ace him on the outside corner, but that one went well wide of the plate.
From the former 30th round pick of the White Sox back in 2006. Frazier drives one to left field. Rosario at the warning track as out number 2. It is a couple months later. That likely is leaving. 2017 Chicago White Sox are presented by Guaranteed Rate. Low mortgage rates and a fast, easy process. Learn more at rate.com.
We're seeing around all of baseball home runs being recorded at a record pace. And with the weather not near as warm as it's going to be in a lot of different places, wait till it heats up, because the ball's been flying out of just about every ballpark.
Wait until San Diego gets here. We saw Ryan Schimpf in spring training, the Padres home run hitter with robust numbers last year. Saw something earlier today. He's hit, I think it's 7 ground balls all year. And there's so much more elevation of the baseball going on around the majors.
Ever since launch angle had been quantified for just about each and everybody, problem is when you try to do it, more times than not, with the effort to do it, especially if you're a line drive hitter, that effort will cause too many pop-ups and the inability to hit fastballs that are somewhere between the belt and the letters. But other guys adapt to it pretty well. They just have a natural stroke like that, and if you throw them down, they're going to kill it.
Fastball for strike 3, and Santiago has a couple of punch outs. He's yet to see a base runner against him. No score.
guy on the right thinking that the other two would make a really good mid-game snack?
I don't. Well, probably. Here's Castro. Takes a strike. Jason Castro over from Houston, his first year with Minnesota.
He got off to a hot start this year, but the bat has cooled off, as you can tell by those numbers. But they were very pleased at the early offensive output from a guy they viewed as a great defender.
Stanford alum Jason Castro. Big swing and a miss on a ball with a lot of sink late.
Once again, another shift, and it seems more times than not the boys are shifting on just about each and every hitter, which, if you look at defensive charts, shows you that Castro, at least on the ground, hits the ball to the right side. In the air, a touch to left center.
Two strikes still on Castro, whose former team, the Astros, have expanded that lead out west to 6 games at the start of play today. And boy, Texas has carved itself out a very large hole.
They certainly have had some injuries, and losing Beltre early is a big blow to that team.
Cole Hamels as well.
I was going to say pitching has been a problem. Hamels is out for at least a couple of months. There's been so many injuries around baseball. We see it every day. You read the transactions. You see another team putting a pitcher on the DL. Seems to happen at least once every day.
Called strike 3 on the inside corner. Castro sent away by Pelfrey.
Can understand where he would be a little unhappy, but he's showing you that Dan Bellino will call a good plate. That's a cutter on the inside part of the plate. Omar does a nice job. He didn't exactly yank it back in. He kind of eased it back in the zone. And if you use your wrist, you're going to buy some calls. And that young man would like to not buy that. He'd like to buy a soft drink. He'd like to buy a Coca-Cola.
Excuse me, sir. May I see your ID, please?
Yeah, 21 months. You're okay. Adrianza shortened it if to bunt, then pulled it back. Took a strike.
Former San Francisco Giant infielder who's been out with an oblique injury. Just 0 for 3 in the majors this year.
There's a very good chance for these Twins that Dozier will be back in the lineup. But it could be a couple of days. He has an ankle problem.
I believe the Sox are okay with that, with Dozier maybe resting a little bit.
I think they feel pretty good if Sano would rest the entire series. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Sano has certainly dogged the Sox this year. Nice run on that pitch over the inside corner, 2-2.
Mike is at good command of everything tonight. There's some good movement.
Setup is outside from Omar. 2-2. On the ground, Abreu does feed Pelfrey this time in stride for round number 2. Saturday, May 13th, come see the Sox take on the San Diego Padres. 6:10 p.m. All fans are invited to stay for a spectacular postgame fireworks show presented by Magellan Corporation. Buy tickets today by visiting whitesox.com or calling 866-SOX-GAME.
It's also the night of the Hawk Harrelson alarm clock. First 20,000 fans will receive one of those, so get here early on Saturday. We have projections of the crowd. It's going to be a big one. You're going to love that alarm clock.
Tell you what, the spot that the Sox did promoting the alarm clock
Nice,
with
huh?
Dan Plesac is pretty entertaining.
Very nice.
2 down for Buxton. And there's strike 1.
You don't want to make a habit of high curveballs, but on the first pitch, usually a hitter is going to take anything that's spinning, and Buxton did there.
23-year-old who has yet to hit his stride offensively in his major league career, Byron Buxton.
When he came back from the minor leagues last year, he looked like he had finally figured it out because he was hitting just about everything and hit close to 300 the last couple of months of the season. But coming out this year, still offensively challenged.
Last multi-hit game came a couple of weeks ago on the 25th of April, and the Sox have contributed significantly to his struggles this year. He's just 2 for 21 against the Sox.
And here's a philosophy that happens to guys like Buxton. He was so good and so dominant that he never learned to play a smaller man's game coming up to the major leagues, where he had to bunt, he had to hit and run, he had to do a lot of things that will be very good for the ball club. Right now, he hasn't learned those things. And Paul Molitor, his Hall of Fame manager, was a great bunter. And he has told Buxton to be good every now and then to lay one down. If you're a 270 hitter and you get one bunt hit a week, you'll be a 300 hitter. And Paul Molitor knew that. And that's something he's trying to impart to Buxton, who at this point still wants to swing at everything.
2-2. Checked his swing. And 3-2.
Yeah, that was off the plate. That was a good call by Dan Bellino. Joe Mauer, leadoff hitter for the first time this year in the on-deck circle.
Three and two. Fouled away. Buxton 9 walks, 33 strikeouts this year.
The 9 walks for him is not a bad number. That shows he's been a little more patient. And although he's astonishingly fast, he still doesn't have the great base stealers technique, although he's 3 for 3 this year.
Pitch number 8 coming from Pelfrey to Buxton. Rope to left field, and this should be extra bases for Byron Buxton. First base runner of the night for either team is a 2-out double for the Twins center fielder.
Mike got to the point where he wanted to get one over the plate, and it was a fastball that was a little further out over the plate than Omar would have wanted it. Buxton hits it hard. And then just watching this guy run is a pleasure. He's got beautiful strides. He's very fast. And the Twins they know they've got a 5-tool player who can't seem to make a few of those tools work for him in the early going, but he's still very young.
Yeah, just 23, and just think about, they've improved already this year. They're 1 game over 500. If he does put it together and more easily flip the card over, who knows what this lineup will become.
Eventually, he won't be hitting in the 9th spot. They're waiting to see some of that potential translate into performance and move him a different spot in the lineup. But until then, rolling over normally from 9 to 1, you've got Dozier in the 1 spot. Mauer usually will not hit up there, and so it gives them a pretty good combination if Buxton can start to hit the ball.
Saladino handles the hop and throws out Mauer for out number 3. Sox fans of all shapes and sizes and leg numbers tonight. No score from Guaranteed Rate Field. 25. Donate $25 or more on May 10th and 11th with the chance to win White Sox prizes, including autographed items and experiences. For more information and to participate, visit whitesox.com/Sox25. A great promotion put together by Christine O'Reilly and her entire crew, Sarah and Lauren and everybody in that department, trying to do some wonderful things for the community with your generous donations the next couple of days. You can win some great prizes, too.
That's one of the great things about it. Every hour, a prize will be given away, and the final hour, 25 prizes given away. Tim was given a day out of the lineup to be able to regroup a bit, catch his breath, observe the game from the bench. And I think sometimes, especially for young players, that really helps to get a perspective of what's going on the field. And I know they're working with Tim on a lot of things that have gone wrong defensively, but he's got the ability. He came back last year and showed he has the ability defensively to be an elite major league shortstop.
Breaking ball gets him this time. Third strikeout for Santiago. DeWalt, the official tools of the Chicago White Sox. DeWalt, guaranteed tough, offering total job site solutions. One down for Narvaez. 7 up, 7 down for Santiago so far.
Now we will see if a lefty-lefty matchup will do a little bit better than the first time through the order to this point, and Omar was not supposed to play tonight.
Soto scratched late, and Narvaez into the lineup. Omar, you mentioned the changeup that Santiago throws every once and again. Omar is actually in short work for the month plus a week, has been the best changeup hitter for the Sox this year.
So 2-1. If you're wondering, especially you young players out there, young hitters of any sort, how you hit a changeup, you have to wait back to hit a changeup. You have to keep your weight and your hands back, and you'll be able then to stay with a changeup. Changeup is designed to have you swinging at the motion as opposed to the baseball. So waiting back longer will give you an idea about the velocity of the pitch. And if you do have quick hands, you can always catch up with a fastball. You just don't want to get out front.
When did you most like to use a changeup?
I didn't have one specifically, a straight change that the guys use today. I used to change up off the curveball, and I used to use it early in the count because guys don't have a tendency to swing it that early in the count.
Ball 4 to Omar, 1 out, 1 on for Willie Garcia. So you never developed a changeup?
No, and I tried all kinds of different ways, but eventually I split my fingers apart to slow down the baseball. Unfortunately, it became a splitter, which would have been fine, except because it was a curveball pitcher. The curveball and the splitter both played a little havoc with my elbow, and I had to disband or discard the changeup. You know, the splitter. I just didn't throw it anymore.
Ball 1 to Willie Garcia, former Pittsburgh Pirate farmhand.
And we're getting a look at what he looks like in center field, because we've seen him on the corners. Just as soon as Avi gets used to a Garcia to his right, they slip in another Garcia on him.
It is truly amazing to see the three guys out there together from that center field shot with the three jerseys all the same at the start of the game.
Well, Willie looks like he can swing the bat, and we'll have to see if he can swing it consistently against major league pitching. He was swinging it very well in AAA. This is a man spent 8 years in the minor leagues trying to get here, still only 25. It has a long way to go.
Willie Garcia, that's a base hit. Omar to second, and the Sox have something brewing. First hit tonight for the Sox comes from the 9 spot.
Willie's got an opportunity that he might not have thought he was going to get quite this soon. And now it's up to him to make the most of it. Some good hitting as he takes this to right center field. And a chance to break through against the very good left-hander.
Well, you talk about deserving the call-up, and Rick Hahn said during spring training, we're not just going to call guys up because we need a body. We're going to wait for somebody to force us to do it, and Willie Garcia, slugging nearly .530 in AAA, has gotten now 2 chances. So Saladino with 2 on takes ball 1.
Hector Santiago, as Tyler was walking to the plate, motioned over to Joe Mauer to be heads up for a push bunt to the right side.
There's some real estate in between the pitcher's mound and Mauer on the right side of that infield.
Yeah, I don't think that Tyler's even thinking about pushing the bunt, although if he did, it's a base hit because he's going to be able to beat Santiago to first base, because like most left-handers, he falls off the mound to the third base side. Tyler's thinking about driving him home with a base hit.
Narvaez at second, Garcia at first, 2-0. Saladino does just that into left field. Omar's on his way home. Garcia going to third. Sox lead 1-0.
Third run batted into the year for Tyler. And he breaks the charm. So the walk to Narvaez, followed by the Garcia base hit, and Tyler steps up, takes it to left field. He takes a wide turn at first base. This is a heads-up play by Rosario and left. The reason being, you're not going to try to cut down a base runner at third because you're not going to get him. Garcia runs pretty well, but you want to keep the double play in order so you get it into second base. And leaving runners at the corners, now you've got the double play. But you'd be amazed how many major league outfielders will try to cut down the runner at third and watch the trailer coast into second.
Sox try to keep building with Melky at the plate, and he takes ball 1. So Santiago now has thrown ball 1 to 3, now 4 batters in a row.
Had a really nice discussion with Ricky Renteria as we were coming home off the road trip, and he was talking about the things he was proud of from this ball club. And he says one of the things is the fact that they're hustling each and every day, and the other thing is they never give up regardless of how far down they are in any game. Those are 2 of the trademarks of a team that has a chance to be pretty good. And what Ricky is doing is he's laying the foundation for not future generations, but future players to come to the White Sox with an idea about how the White Sox play baseball on a daily basis. And if you can do that, you're changing the culture of the team. And I think he's successfully in the early going done that.
Another very good sign, and this is more standings based, but the Sox have done very well against the Central this year at 14-10. The repeat customers have not had the same success against the Sox as they have in years past.
No, the division has been very tough on the Sox of recent vintage. Not so this year.
Off speed gets Melky for strike 3, and the 4th strikeout for Santiago is out number 2.
He's exactly the guy you want to see in this situation, because Jose is doing in the early parts of this year what he did the last 2 months of last season, and that is not only have a good at bat each and every time, but hit the ball consistently hard. He's been doing that for the better part of a week and a half right now.
A lot more line drives, fewer ground balls, infield pop-ups this year than even last year for the season, as he skewers this ball into right field, and the Sox double their lead. Abreu comes through with 2 down.
Good piece of hitting, because that was a fastball that was high and away. He didn't try to pull it. He just poked it into right field. This is what big run producers do. Pretty good feeling that Santiago is going to stay away. He's right on it, goes that way, keeps his head right there. His head was phenomenally still. And it turned into the run batted in, which is the 17th of the year, and a 2-run lead for Mike Pelfrey.
Boy, when Jose is locked in, he is fun to watch at the plate.
He's had some moments over the course of his brief major league career, and brief being this is the 4th year of it. He's had some moments where they've been really difficult for him. But the one thing that he can do is hit. He is a professional hitter. He takes a great deal of pride in driving home runs. It's the only way you can have 3 straight years of 100 runs batted in or more. And he's in line to have yet another one of those.
He leaves it for Avi with first and second, 2 down. This after the first 7 were put out by Santiago.
One of the reasons why I think he had trouble with Narvaez is that he's facing an all right-handed lineup. I feel the same way facing a lineup that a manager would stack with all left-handers. Being a right-handed pitcher, you get a release point, you just stay there. Anytime you vary that release point, and there's only one left-hander in this lineup, Narvaez, you vary the sight lines and release point, sometimes you can't throw a strike. That really set up this inning.
Narvaez takes the walk, then Garcia and Saladino back-to-back singles. After Melky's strikeout, Abreu the RBI single, and 2-0. Swing and a miss for strike 3, and the inning's over, but the Sox grab a pair of runs on 3 hits and take the lead after 3.
May 13th, but if you win Sox Math, you could actually have one before anybody in your neighborhood. Here it is.
Well, we will send it probably right around the next couple days. They
No
might have
way.
it later. Sorry. Hawk alarm clock on the prize shelf tonight. Sox Math coming up in just a little while. Ball and no strikes on Polanco. Hawk's throwing out the first pitch on Saturday.
Yes, he is. He'll have his family at the game. And hopefully the weather will turn around somewhat this weekend, because it's time to start getting warm. Mother Nature, bring some heat to the Chicagoland area.
You have a direct line to her?
Yes.
She was a big Oriole fan back in the day.
Huge.
2-1 on Polanco, the Twins shortstop, who bounced out to first in the first. Pelfrey has allowed only 1 base runner so far. And there is a pretty good hook for a strike. 2-2. It's Nurses Appreciation Night at the ballpark as well. There are some nurses here at the park.
Pretty good slow curveball. Was in the neighborhood of the outside corner.
2-2 is flipped into center field. Polanco with a leadoff single. Here's your Sox math question for tonight. Hashtag Sox math on Twitter. First correct answer wins a prize off the prize shelf. Number of games in this homestand minus the number of home runs for Yoan Moncada in AAA. Add Tim Anderson's current jersey number and then multiply the hour at which this game started in Melky Cabrera's hometown. That's your question for tonight. Hashtag Sox math on Twitter.
It's got a little degree of difficulty to it.
It is. Is that what your major was? Difficulty?
Degree of.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I could get a degree in.
It's Kepler who takes strike number 1. Max Kepler, the son of 2 ballet dancers.
And a pretty good solid player. He's going to be able to hit some home runs, but he's not going to be a home run hitter, even though he's at a power position in right field.
All right, so what's the difference? A home run hitter and somebody who hits home runs?
Well, a home run hitter is a guy that each and every time he comes up, you worry about him hitting the ball out of the ballpark, and he is a constant threat. Kepler is a good solid player, and he's got a chance to be, in all facets of the game, very good. Just he's not going to be a guy that you worry about on a daily basis hitting it out, especially at target field, because that's a tough place to hit home runs. Now, there are some guys like Sano and Vargas that make it look small, but for the normal guy who's trying to hit a home run, it's not a hitter's ballpark.
Runners off, throw down to second is late. Stolen base for Polanco.
This Minnesota team has not been phenomenally aggressive, but that's their 15th stolen base. They've only been caught 3 times. The throw is up. Polanco got a very good jump. That's one of the things they're going to probably try to do against Mike Pelfrey when they have the opportunity to do it, and that is run, and that's the 2nd stolen base. 2 for 2 is Polanco.
Saw the lead, by the way, from Polanco over at first base. A couple of checks to first to go. We now have the ability to show you some new things StatCast wise that you'll see pop up throughout the broadcast, including the distance off the bag for a base runner.
Normal lead is right around 12 feet. That you would consider an average lead in the major leagues.
On the ground and through. That's a base hit for Kepler. Here comes Polanco, and the Twins are on the board. It's 2-1.
There's no way that Todd Frazier could play that close to the line for a left-hand hitter. And Kepler took this one, and it's a mistake by Mike Pelfrey. Narvaez wanted this one in. Pelfrey got it out over the plate. Kepler takes it the opposite way, and the lead is cut in half. Polanco scores easily.
Run number 11 on the year for Polanco. And there's a strike to Vargas.
Kepler 2 for 2 in stolen bases, and Mike Pelfrey's going to have to hold the ball a bit longer. He might want to think about a slide step. Kepler, not a prolific base stealer, but they're going to run on Pelfrey.
Kepler holds this time, and Narvaez blocks the ball in the dirt. Kepler didn't have a bad lead that time.
Outfield straightaway, very deep, as you would expect. It's just under Major League average.
To right field, Garcia has no play. Two-run homer for Vargas, and Minnesota takes the lead.
Line drive rocket, fourth for Vargas. He's now driven in 10. And just like that, the two-run lead dissolves. And the Twins have taken the lead. 3 hitters into the 4th inning. Our forward home run replay is a fastball down the middle. Vargas with great strength. All of his home runs have come as a left-hand hitter, and this is a line drive to the bullpen and beyond.
He does not get cheated at the plate. We found out
from either side of the plate. I don't think for Polanco's career he needs too many more chest bumps with the big man. Vargas can put him into the next county.
That's a contusion waiting to happen. Problem is, it's chest on head.
Kennis is a large fellow.
Home run 406 feet off Vargas's bat.
Yeah, that was more along the lines of the line drive, because he can hit him forever. Gives you an idea how strong he is, hitting 400-plus foot line drive.
2-2 on Rosario, who popped out to short in the 2nd inning. Just home game number 12 for the Sox this year. 6-5. The home record starting play tonight. And this goes to second base, and Tyler Saladino for out number 1. Sox fans, join us as the White Sox take on the Twins this Thursday, May 11th, 7:10 p.m. First 10,000 fans get a free specialty T-shirt presented by the Village of Bedford Park. Bring your business home to Bedford Park and win big. Purchase your tickets today by visiting whitesox.com or calling 866-SOX-GAME.
That was one exciting baseball team, that 1977 Southside Hitmen bunch. That team could hit the ball out of the park. We had 10 guys on that team with 10 or more home runs.
And you all got your name on a shirt to show for it.
And we did.
Stone, roughly on the right side of the shirt. Middle. It's a nice placement for your name.
It's a good, solid placement. That was fun. We had a really good time that year until Kansas City caught us and then waved bye-bye.
What a deep lineup. I mean, you were talking about it. You get 30 homers from Richie Zisk.
31 from Oscar Gamble. 25 from Eric Soderholm. And then a bunch of guys in the teens.
Essien, Orta, Lamar Johnson, 18 homers.
Lamar could hit him. He was strong.
So what happened? Kansas City just that good?
They were very good, and what happened was they came into town for a 4-game series, 2 single games and a doubleheader, and we had taken the first 3. Bob Lemon was the manager. He took his foot off the gas pedal for 1 game and played majority of the bench players in the 2nd game of the doubleheader.
In the air left side, Melky giving chase, and he is there in foul ground for out number 2.
And the second game was won by Kansas City, made the difference between a 5.5 game lead and a 3.5 game lead, and then they pretty much took off. But Bill Veeck, till the day he passed away, said that had he had the money to make either a trade or purchase a shortstop, he feels it would have been a different year, because Alan Bannister was a very good hitter, but he had a bad arm and could hardly get the ball in the air from shortstop to first base. 40-plus errors at shortstop, that helped do the club in, not necessarily just Allen, the fact that the defense wasn't there.
Strike one to Castro. And that's something that the Sox, this version of the Sox, 4 decades later, ran into during the road trip. Is there was some issue catching the ball in Baltimore, which allowed a good Orioles team to take advantage.
Well, in talking with Ricky, we both agreed on one thing, is that when you're playing a team that's a good team, and the Orioles certainly at 21-10 fall into that category, you have to play a clean game. This team can compete with any team playing a clean game, but the better teams, when you make a mistake or two,
as Castro gets hit,
those better teams will do you in. So Castro aboard, keeping the inning alive. Mike is starting to miss by some wide margins, because Narvaez wanted that curveball, wanted to shave off the outside corner with a backdoor breaking ball. Instead, it went down and in and put Castro at first.
Looked like that ball hit the ground and then hit him.
Yeah, that's it. If it does it, you can still hit the baseball for a base hit, but if it hits you, you're going to first. So even if you get hit on the hop, which is what happened, on the hop to the left shin, and then hop your way to first base.
They were rocking, they were rolling at the hop. Rarely do you see that, somebody get hit with a ball on the hop. Anderson throws out Adrianza, but the Twins take the lead, 3 runs to start the inning, and it's 3-2. Santos was celebrating with a couple special guests.
I've got Allison, Lucas, and Ned, the stars of Downward Dog. And you guys, tell me a little bit about the show and where people can watch it.
Well, our show premieres May 17th, which is next Wednesday on ABC right after Modern Family.
It's about
I'm gonna share the mic.
A dog that is kind of like, it's like, what if Lassie was like a bit of a self-centered jerk? Anyway, and so we're privy to his inner monologue.
And Ned is a rescue from Paws here in Chicago. I know you're big into rescues. Tell me about your pups.
Yeah, well, I've got 4 insane dogs that I've all rescued, and you know they run my life. There you go.
Thanks, guys. All right, Steve, Jason, let's go back to you guys in the booth.
I don't know that Timmy would have been as endearing if Lassie was a self-centered jerk.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lassie had a charming personality, however. And Downward Dog is a show that you've got to catch.
Be on ABC, as you just heard, after Modern Family, which is had quite the long run, by the way.
Good show.
Hector Santiago given a second wind by his offense as Frazier takes ball 4. Second walk for Santiago, and the first one certainly hurt him. Narvaez came around to score last inning.
So what Santiago did when he turns around is, first thing he wants to know is if the ball's hit back to me, who's going to cover? In this situation, it appears that Adrianza is going to cover because Polanco is playing Davidson as a pull hitter. He is way away from second base.
Strike 1 to Davidson, who was featured on the Sox website this week, talking about everything he'd been through trying to get to the big leagues, and then the broken foot last year. Now with the team from Go this season.
Infield playing him as a dead pull hitter, the outfield shading him a couple of steps as an off-field hitter, or in this case, just to the right of center for Buxton.
I think that's so counterintuitive for viewers, though. You look and you say, well, if he's going to hit it to one side on the infield, then why wouldn't he do that to the outfield?
Well, normally guys who have big power, when they hit the ball in the air, many times they can drive it to center or right center field. It's seemingly an easy stroke for them. But when they get the ball on the ground, they have a tendency to hook it. And you see more times than not, when they shift, it's going to be a completely different infield and outfield shift. There you see Polanco and Escobar very close together on the left side, but the outfield, as you can see, playing him just a touch, but pretty much straight away.
Davidson 1 for 3 coming into the game all time against Santiago before that strikeout in the second inning, and both the balls that he's put in play have gone to the opposite field toward the outfield in his time against Santiago.
But for the most part, Hector likes to throw his fastball away from the right-hand hitters. He will go in occasionally, but he doesn't have near the command on the inside part of the plate that he does on the outside to a right-hand hitter.
Good pitch on 3-2. Davidson fouls it away.
Well, even though it was off the plate, it was too close to take, and he was able to stay alive. See where Castro wants it? Hector gets it there. It is inside off the plate, but again, you're trying to protect, so you're going to be hacking.
Frazier at first, 3-2, and Davidson to the right side, a double play ball.
That's one where a base runner is trapped. When the ball is hit behind him, in the case of Todd Frazier, he takes one step, and then you see Mauer's between you and the bag if you're the base runner, so you have no choice. Normally you say don't get picked up on a line drive. That's really one of the exceptions where it's not a bad base running play because your natural instinct is to take just the one step and then you're hung out to dry.
He'd have to have no lead at first, basically, to not be doubled off there.
And anticipate that the guy's going to catch it.
Tim Anderson rails on this ball to left, but Rosario is there for out number 3. Leadoff walk does no harm. It's 3-2. The Sox trailing after 4. this homestand. 6 home runs from Moncada in AAA so far. That's 0. Plus 7 for Anderson's jersey number. It is 8 in Melky Cabrera's hometown as the game starts. And so your winner is White Sox 061-705. Congratulations to White Sox 061-705. Knowing that Melky Cabrera is from Santo Domingo in the Dominican, basically Eastern time. They call it Atlantic time there. And so 8 o'clock is the hour at which this game started. 5th inning, Buxton leads it off against Pelfrey. And a foul ball, but on Moncada, 6 home runs with AAA Charlotte, and he has just been sending the ball all over the ballpark. He's on base at .419, slugging nearly .550, and the average is up to .345.
You get the feeling that in the not too distant future, and maybe not now, but Moncada's not going to be a leadoff hitter, even though he's got great speed. If you're a switch hitter and can produce some runs the way he can, you want him a little further down in the lineup, even though he has great speed. He's capable of stealing 60 bases. I'm not sure when he gets here if the Sox want him to run quite that much. But this is a guy with blazing speed.
Well, Mark Grudzielanek, his skipper in AAA, said the other day, look, if you called him up right now, he'd be fine. But there are things we're working out. There are things with him being such a young player, you almost want to say, wow, he didn't know that, or shouldn't he know that already? But that's the reason that he's in the minors still, is to work out those kinks and make sure he's as close to ready when he gets here as possible. There is out number 1, and we check our Sox farm report tonight. And Moncada is the guy. 11 for 22 as the International League Batter of the Week, first week of May.
I suppose you think the rest of those numbers are good. Actually, it was quite a week. Hitting approximately what he's hitting all season long. He is tearing it up at AAA.
Saw some pictures actually from Indianapolis the last couple of days at Victory Field, and there were a number of Sox jerseys at the ballpark. A lot of folks went down to Indy to see the Charlotte team play.
And if you missed it on our prize shelf, there is a Charlotte Knights baseball cap. A handsome one at that. And if you have a size 8.5 head, you can fit in this. No, actually, it's 7 1/4.
Bruce Bochy and Kevin Mensch need not apply. There's a look at that lovely hat that you could win.
That's a good-looking cap. No doubt about it.
New Knights logo the past couple of years. Their new ballpark, BB&T Ballpark in Uptown Charlotte. Tell you what, Indy's got a nice park too. If Sox fans get a chance to go down there, whether it's in the playoffs or next year, they only make the one trip in, but Victory Field is one of the gems of the minor leagues.
Well, the ballparks have gotten better and better all through the minor leagues. It used to be a little rough, especially in the lower minors. In Bakersfield, for one, there was one workable shower, which...
That ball is drilled to right field, and one hop off the wall for Joe Mauer, who cruises in with a 1-out double. That wasn't the stadium where they had the slaughterhouse outside the.
No, that was in Amarillo. Nobody's going to be down the line if Mauer gets out in front and pulls a ball like this. They're playing him to right center in right field and to an off-field hitter all the way around.
Former first overall pick by the Twins back in 2001.
That was a big debate at the time, was do you go with Joe Mauer or do you go with Mark Pryor? And Mauer had a lot of things going for him. Wonderful athlete, homegrown kid. And as it turned out, they wound up making the right choice. Well, Pryor looked like he was going to be a star for a long time. It just didn't work out that way.
Hard to not bring in the guy who's from the hometown.
Yeah, especially the type of ability he had. He was a 3-sport star. and was supposed to be the quarterback, I believe, at Florida State. But again, a lot of money, and the Twins have him.
And they've had him since. To right field, Avi on the run. Snaps up out number 2. Mauer back to second base.
Avi's been getting very good jumps, and that time on a sinking line drive, he broke immediately straight in, was able to take what appeared to be a base hit away, and Dan Jennings continues to throw in the pen.
Dan is going to get some use this year.
He's going to get wound up with a lot of use, but David Holmberg is here now, so you got a couple of left-handers down there.
Off speed downstairs for ball 1. Well, with the day off yesterday, the Sox bullpen is likely in full rest mode, with Inoa and Robertson throwing in the finale in Baltimore. The Sox have not had many games where they've had to spill out the bullpen this year. More than 2 or 3 pitchers coming out in a game, and that's part of what caused the team to take the downturn last year, was those multiple arm innings out of the bullpen.
This year it's been just the opposite, especially in the case of David Robertson, who said ideally he would like to throw 3 times a week. 4 if need be, but you just want to get out there and get the feeling, especially with David and that curveball. But I've said it a few times that closers especially will rust away before they wear away, because you don't get a chance to close that many games, and so that's why you have to get your closer an inning every now and then, like David did in Baltimore. So if this game is on the line and needed late, he'll have a good feeling for the mound.
3-1 to Kepler, and that's a called strike. 3-2. Well, our pitch cast had that as a strike at the very top of the zone.
If you get a choice with Vargas, you'd just as soon face him from the right side than the left.
Three and 2. And it's fouled away. Sox had the lead in this game 2-0 after a 2-run third inning. Saladino and Abreu both RBI singles, but top 4, Kepler an RBI hit and Vargas the 2-run homer, and Minnesota has taken the lead and held it so far.
Pitch number 95 on the way.
Ball 4.
And now decision time. And I think that decision has been made. Because again, we talked about your preference of facing Vargas. You want him to hit from the right side rather than the left. To do that, it necessitates Dan Jennings to come in the ball game, and that's exactly what will happen. So Dan is ready to go, and as he walks out of the bullpen, we will step out. Be back after these messages.
ticket that includes hitting in the batting cages. Join us for Family Field Day, Saturday, June 10th, and support Chicago White Sox charities. To purchase tickets, visit whitesoxcharities.org.
It's our Hyundai call to the pen, and it is Dan Jennings, and that will necessitate Vargas to turn around from the right side. There you look at some pretty stout numbers. On for the 15th time, 2-0. 3.38 ERA, gave up a couple of runs last time out, but they actually scored after he had departed that game. And he's got to deal with Vargas with a couple of men on in a one-run Minnesota lead.
Vargas is the reason for that lead.
Vargas hitting 167 as a right-hand hitter. That's just 12 at bats. He doesn't face lefties too often.
Ball number 1.
Time now for StatCast, powered by AWS, and it is exit velocity just under 115. Launch angle 19.3, so it didn't get up all that high, but it did carry 406 feet.
Vargas fouls it off his own body, 1-1. That ball was out in a blink.
Yeah, that's a pretty good exit velocity. That one right off the left leg, and you see he's got a shin guard, but sometimes, as well intentioned as that shin guard is, you hit it someplace but where it's supposed to hit to be protected by that.
Why don't they make the whole uniform out of shin guard?
Sometimes you need a little bit more protection, especially if you keep fouling it off that front leg.
You know, you look at the numbers for Vargas for his career, and his batting average is better against left-handers, but 19 of his 27 career home runs have come against right-handed pitching.
Twofold reason. Number one, many switch hitters, the majority of them, are natural right-hand hitters who decide they don't want to see a breaking ball going away from them. So they switch and become left-handers, and you just have more power from the other side. Most hitters will tell you that are natural right-hand hitters. If they are switch hitters, they'll have more power left-handed because your dominant hand, your right hand, is the one that actually pulls the bat through.
Sox can really take their pick here if they want to, with Rosario on deck, the left-handed batter. Don't have to feed a cookie to Vargas here on 3-1. On the ground up the middle, Saladino behind the bag. Tough throw, he got him. And the inning is over. Twins strand a couple, and Jennings gets the Sox out of it. 3-2 your score. We look forward to that. Everyone wanting to show off their dogs they brought to the ballpark. Steves are in Arizona, or they would be here right now. They might be doing play-by-play, in fact.
I tried to get them tickets, but they only want to fly first class. Told them it's Southwest or nothing, hounds.
You have uppity pups?
So they're back. Yeah, they did not make the trip.
Omar on the ground to shortstop and Polanco, and there is out number 1 of the home 5th. You can follow Dan Hayes, our White Sox insider, all season long on CSNChicago.com, presented by The Great Escape. Pools, patio furniture, hot tubs, and more. Escape your everyday shop. The Great Escape. You can also follow Dan Hayes all season long if you have his license plate number. Dan has groupies.
Dan also had a couple of very good reports on the road as a lot of things were going on, and we had him a couple of times up to explain the movements, the various injuries, the assorted setback, and a lot of things going on. Dan was able to ferret out the news exceptionally well.
News ferret Dan Hayes. Garcia broken bat, and this is hauled in by Adrianza for out number 2. So back to the top of the order in Tyler Saladino.
Yeah, nice of Dan Bellino to give Willie the handle of the bat here as a souvenir.
Well, Dan usually has a wonderful handle on the game.
He also sent up some nice stuff.
He did. He's a nice man. Dan Bellino, the local product. Steve is manhandling my hot dog that I have up here in the booth. I was brought a hot dog for Dog Day. Would you like a bite?
No, it looks delicious. It's a Chicago-style dog.
The best kind. You know, we got onions, we got relish, we have pickle, tomato, dog.
And it wouldn't be a Chicago dog without celery salt.
Do you make them?
There you go. Yes, no, there appears to be mustard, so you won't like that.
I do like mustard on a hot dog.
A bottle of ketchup for you?
Don't know what your problem is. Worked together now for a year and a month, and you're being rude again. 3-0 to Saladino. You know, ESPN.com did a report today about leadoff hitters and how they've changed over the course of time. The on-base percentage is lower this year, but the one number that really stands out is stolen bases per team from the leadoff spot. Just even, say, 25 years ago, 37.5 stolen bases per team, and that it's just not been the case in recent history. Last year, 21 stolen bases per team. The leadoff guy has changed over the course of time in baseball.
Yeah, they're moving their real good hitters, not necessarily their faster guys, to lead off to get them another at bat, i.e. Kyle Schwarber is a leadoff hitter. And he's not going to steal too many.
It's a long run for Buxton. He loses his hat, and he ends the inning all at the same time. 1, 2, 3 for Santiago. Still, the Sox are down a run after 5.
on the train. You can now watch our Sox on the go. Live stream all CSN Chicago White Sox games at csnchicago.com or on the NBC Sports app presented by State Farm.
Is that a soft drink contest involving Southpaw?
Looked like Southpaw and a Great Dane who might take a little bite out of the paw. It's a very large dog, but they're kind, sweet, and gentle animals. So I think the paw is safe for the moment.
If you were a dog, would you be a Great Dane with the whole kind, sweet, and gentle thing?
No, I'd be a Doberman.
Into center field. That is a base hit for Rosario. And I will not ask the follow-up question of why. You know, today's an anniversary of a very long game at the old Comiskey Park. Went 25 innings. It ended today. They had a curfew pause in the top of the 18th back in 1984. It was May 8th, 1984. A game stopped for the moment with a 3-3 tie, then continued the next day. And the Sox won in 25 innings. Game time 8 hours, 6 minutes. Rob Manfred, not a fan of that game.
No. He would be intentionally walking few people without throwing the pitches, and that would have sped that up to just over 8 hours had they employed that.
Escobar takes the ball. Tom Seaver won that game out of the bullpen, and then they played the game that was originally scheduled for May 9th. He started and won.
Yeah, there you go.
Kids these days.
2 for the price of 1.
That's why he was so terrific, right? That he just threw twice in one day. They didn't have camera phones back then. Nobody was taking selfies with Tom Seaver.
A lot of kids enjoying their night at the old ballpark.
Minnesota took the lead in the 4th inning on a Kenneth Vargas 2-run homer. And there's Anthony Swarzak, who has been lights out this year, getting loose. Play that ended the bottom of the 5th was a pretty good catch by Byron Buxton.
Catch probability 63. In his case was 100%, and sprint speed over 27 miles an hour. He can go get him. Alley to alley and charging the baseball, because that looked like a base hit when it left the bat.
High exit velocity from his hat as well on that play. This one's looped into right field in trouble. It's going to be 1st and 3rd for Minnesota. Escobar singles Rosario to 3rd.
That was a slider that he got up a little higher than he would like, and Eduardo able to just lift it in a perfect spot in right center. Rosario reading that one all the way, coast into 3rd base. So a problem here in a 1-run Minnesota lead.
Well, we saw Swarzak loosening, but you've got the lefty-lefty matchup with Castro. And you take the double play here. It would be 4-2, but you'd like to get yourself out of it as easily as possible. Much prefer a strikeout than a double play.
Yeah, with a long way to go in this one, Don Cooper is going to come out and allow the bullpen to get a little looser. Chris Beck has joined Anthony Swarzak, and Don takes a long, slow walk to the mound. So he will stay out there as long as Dan Bellino is going to let him. He knows that Swarzak is ready to go. He wants to make sure that Beck is. And Dan Bellino comes ambling to the hill to break things up. Don, sensing his presence, decides to stay around a bit longer.
What do you feel the reason for Beck getting loose as well is?
I would think that a base hit here or an extra base hit that scores a pair, you think about going to Beck.
Swarzak being your guy who's bridged the closer games for you this year.
And you have got, and Beck the last time out was very good, throwing 3 excellent innings in relief in Baltimore.
Yeah, it's not to say that Beck couldn't be the guy in a close game. It's simply to say that Swarzak has been in that position more often than not.
Yeah, in your early going, you have a set of pitchers you use when you're tied or ahead, and you have another set when you're a run or 2 down.
Two and 1 to Castro, who struck out in the 3rd, then was hit by a pitch that hit the ground, then clipped him in the 4th.
Castro, former #1 draft pick of the Houston Astros, was ideal for their ballpark in Houston because of the short porch in left field, and he's got pretty good pop the opposite way.
That's a good strike from Jennings. 2-2.
Melky is close to the line. That young fan very concerned where Melky is setting up.
It's his first game.
It is his first game.
Melky's first game was a long while ago.
And he wasn't concerned where he was setting up then.
2-2 from Jennings to Castro, looking for that strikeout. On the ground, Abreu looks the runner back pedals, and gets the out. Escobar to second. Rosario has to stay at 3rd.
Pretty good play by Jose. The guy you obviously worry about is Rosario at 3rd, so he made sure that he froze him. He takes a look. If he's coming home, he's going to go that way. Not concerned at all about the play at second base with Escobar. He takes the out and makes sure that Rosario has to stay at 3rd.
So now you have Adrianza, who twice grounded out against Pelfrey, the right-handed starter for the Sox. He now spins around and bats from the right-hand side. Shows bunt with the infield pretty well back in the middle.
If you're able to just lay the ball down at all, Rosario is most likely going to score. That obviously was more along the lines of a safety squeeze, seeing as Rosario was not running.
Ball 2 from Jennings. So you got Buxton on deck, who is a speedster but struggles with the bat, or at least has his first couple of years. And there are a lot of wheels in motion right now.
You would think in this scenario that if he does not get Adrianza, that it's going to be one of the 2 right-handers, most likely Swarzak, but it'll be manager's choice.
Over first. Abreu couldn't pluck it. Rosario's home. Escobar follows, and the Twins have made it a 5-2 ball game.
I think it's going to be single E9. Two runs driven in, just the second and third for Adrianza, and it is single E9. Takes advantage of a high hop through a drawn-in infield. That's the huge advantage. We always tell you what an advantage it is for hitters with a drawn-in infield, and now you see exactly why. Because he has room to bounce it over his head. Dan Jennings will depart. And it's Chris Beck in what now is a 3-run game, and we'll step out and be back after these messages. He comes in off a fine performance in Baltimore, on for the 5th time, ERA 4.70. He inherits Adrianza out at second base. It is a 3-run deficit. He's trying to hold it right there.
And it's up to Buxton for Minnesota with 1 down, 6th inning. Sox trying to keep it within striking distance here with Melky, Jose, and Avi coming up in the home 6th. Ball nearly hit him.
It sounded like it actually did hit him. Maybe that's what they're looking at. I would think it sounded to me like it hit him, but there was no recognition from Dan Bellino and not a great deal from Buxton.
Listen in.
That, to me, that got a piece of the uniform, but
yeah, there was something, right? There's a clip.
It got a piece of the uniform. But that's okay. We'll take it.
It'd be tough to say that there was evidence for. Checks his swing on a breaking ball, so 2-0 on Buxton. Mauer next, Polanco, then Kepler to follow. They all will bat left-handed against Beck. Buxton drops it in, and Adrianza is on his way home after another bobble in the outfield. It's 6-2 Minnesota.
I'll have to see if Bob Rosenberg will score that a double or single RBI E8. It is single RBI E8, and Buxton does a nice job. This is a slider out away. It's actually out of the strike zone, but he's able to get a bat on it. And Willie has some problems, so a couple of errors in the outfield. And the Twins have a 4-run lead.
Bringing it to Joe Mauer, 6th batter of the inning against 2 separate pitchers. So Jennings officially charged with 3 runs in this outing. In 2/3 of an inning, 3 hits.
Buxton drives in just his 4th of the year. And you can tell how big that lead is at second base. Right now, not an overly big lead because Anderson is right behind him.
And the throw is offline.
If it's a good throw, it's going to be close at second. That was what they call the daylight play. Pitcher looks back. Normally, in the case of a shortstop, he's going to show you his glove. If you can see the glove between the base runner and the bag, that's the daylight you're looking for, and a good solid throw on the money has a good chance of getting it. That throw was well on the first base side of second and no chance.
Ball and a strike on Mauer, who doubled to right in the 5th. Now, Mike Pelfrey opened this game retiring the first 8 batters he faced, but then second time through the order the Twins got to him with 3 runs in the 4th and knocked him out with 2 out in the 5th. Ball's hit hard to left field by Mauer. Here comes Buxton flashing the speed, and he scores. It's 7-2 Minnesota.
There was no chance of Gene Glynn, the third base coach, holding up Byron Buxton. Not with his speed, even though he took a wide turn at third base, which is not recommended. But when you have that speed, it really doesn't matter all that much. He sees the ball fall, then takes off, and Gene Glynn says, "Keep on going, young man." No chance at all for Melky. Even though the turn is wider than you would like, he still scores easily. RBI number 13 for Joe Mauer, who seems to like the leadoff spot.
In this game, he gets his first double of the month, then an RBI single, and now Polanco dances out of the way of ball 1. Now the hope is, if you're the Sox, that Beck will just soak up some outs.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for at this point. Nobody up in the pen. And the Sox need some outs. And they have to have Chris Beck retire a few.
Check swing and a strike, says the third base umpire Toby Basner.
Sox starting 16 straight games without a day off. So the last thing you want to do is decimate your bullpen very early in that run of 16 straight. The next off day is the 25th of May, after coming back from Arizona for a 3-game series, which will conclude a 10-game road trip to Anaheim, Seattle, and Phoenix.
Ball smoked to right field by Polanco. Mauer is around second. Polanco on his way into second, sliding. And the Twins now have 6 hits in the inning out of 7 batters.
Second hit of the night for Polanco, who also lined out last inning. So Jorge Polanco is swinging it well. And Narvaez out to talk with Chris Beck. Now the Twins are in the middle of this order.
Good news from down on the farm, though. Tonight, Michael Kopech started for Double-A Birmingham. 6 innings, 2 hits, a run, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts.
I'm sure he's learning something, and obviously as a starting pitcher, as a 20-year-old, he's going to learn some things, but the 6 strikeouts is very encouraging to me in 6 innings. And the reason is, if he's just reaching back and throwing with everything he has, there's going to be 10 strikeouts in 6 innings. So obviously he's learning to move the ball around, change speeds. He's going to get strikeouts because his stuff is that good. The fact that he went 6 is a good sign. He's done that a couple of times.
2 strikes on Kepler. 8th batter of this 6th inning for Minnesota. And there's strike 3 from Beck. He goes up the ladder for a strikeout and 2 down.
Omar wants it upstairs. Chris throws it there and throws it by him.
Two down for Vargas, who's the only guy who's not hit in the inning for Minnesota. And he takes a strike from Beck. Still a lot of way to go in this game. Sox have 3 hits against Santiago, all of those coming in the 3rd inning. See how long Santiago is for this game. Two.
One of the constants of recent vintage Minnesota Twin team composition is the fact that the bullpen, number one, does not strike out a lot of people. Historically, near the bottom or at the bottom in Major League Baseball as far as strikeouts out of the pen. And also, they've really had some problems. Last year, the highest ERA in the major leagues out of that bullpen. So you can get to them, just got to get to that pen.
There's strike 3. Beck does away with Vargas, but Minnesota puts together a 4-run inning and will go bottom 6 in a 7-2 score. To purchase tickets, visit whitesox.com/Italy. And sad news, a longtime White Sox fan who never missed an Italian night at the ballpark, Rose Russo, who was 104 years old, passed away over the weekend. So Italian night is not going to be the same this year. Melky takes strike 1 and now behind 0-2. Melky has struggled in his career with Santiago, 2 for 19. Oh, and 2 is inside. Foul ground first base side, and this is out of play beyond the Minnesota dugout. Like a fan went after it with the hat, which is Not a bad move if that's the only thing around.
Actually, on a cold night, it's probably a very good move.
Those winter hats would make good gloves. Nice pocket.
If this keeps up any longer, we're going to have a second one of those winter cap days.
Well, one of the actors who Sierra interviewed earlier from that ABC show Downward Dog was on the Fargo show, the series. So maybe they can tell us about the winter hats.
That's a great series, by the way. It's a wonderful movie. And the series is outstanding. Ted Danson stars. And there's one of those caps.
That's the all the way around cap. And there's out number one. Melky grounds out. Here is your sticks and stone question for you this lovely night. Who was the first Minnesota Twin to strike out against Steve Stone?
Wow. This would just be a guess, and I've got a 33% chance by guessing. So it should be, of those players, it should be George Mitterwald, because that's the only list he would be included with Larry Heisel and Harmon Killebrew. But I'll say that it was Larry Heisel.
Why?
Oh, I don't know. I got 33% chance. Plus, I did play with him in the Ohio All-Star Game, 1965. So I figured maybe somewhere along the line I struck him out.
Where was the Ohio All-Star Game in 1965?
In Columbus. And on the East, which was the team I played for, Larry Heisel, Gene Tennis, Thurman Munson, and moi.
Wow. You all had to have won, right?
We won all 3 games, yes. We decimated the West, much to their dismay. And then Thurman Munson told me he would be my catcher at Kent State. He was going to be a battery mate, despite the fact that he played shortstop in those games.
There's ball 4. Abreu is on. Let's give you the answer and see if you were right.
Well, probably not, but again, 33% chance.
Your confidence is slipping here in Sticks and Stone this season. It's Harmon Killebrew.
Wow.
How about that?
Well, he was 75 when I faced him, so I probably struck him out.
I don't think that's true.
No.
He was on his way out, is what you're
I
saying.
wouldn't think that was the, no, that was not the halcyon days of his career by the time I got to him.
1 on 1 out for Avi after walk number 3. Did you play that All-Star game at Old Cooper Stadium, by the way, in Columbus?
It's a good question. I have no idea. I just knew I was in Columbus. Don't know where they were played.
Oh. You often go to Columbus on a lark?
To play a baseball game? Absolutely.
Avi in the air, center field in Buxton. And there is out number 2. Abreu remains at first, and Frazier coming up. It's a chilly night at the ballpark. The plan is for it to warm up a little bit as we approach the weekend.
Well, a few raindrops will be present tomorrow and Wednesday, I believe. I mean, tomorrow and Thursday. Hopefully, it will not interrupt things. That's the kind of night it is. It is very chilly, although the scoreboard still says 52. I think that's overly optimistic.
Frazier takes a strike. That game tomorrow, 7:10 start time. Phil Hughes and Derek Holland as Todd grimaces at the strike call. Up high, ball and a strike. Todd's former team, the Cincinnati Reds, don't look now, but Cincinnati is 3 over. They beat the Yankees tonight, dropping the Yankees to 21-10.
Cincinnati has some thunder in that lineup these days. And talking with a few of the folks in Cincinnati and some of their scouts, Cam Bonifay, former general manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates, currently a scout of the Reds. He was watching our series in Baltimore. Said they've got some good young pitching on the horizon. I know they absolutely obliterated San Francisco.
That has been a rough go of it for the Giants, and now Mark Melancon on the disabled list.
Yeah, the Giants, they've got some big problems.
We won't see the Giants till later in the year. As Frazier pops this up, first base, and Mauer dodging the bag for round number 3. Abreu stranded. We go to the 7th. Sox are down 5. Dog night here at the ballpark. Montefiore is dressed for the weather. And a chest bump.
Now that young man really enjoying the popcorn. And by the way, Bobby Bertucci stepped up to the booth today. Very nice. Brought a bag of delectables.
Sandwiches.
Thanks, Bobby.
Yeah. Combo in there.
Ooh, very good.
Post-game snack. Nothing like having something light right after the game. Strike 1 to Rosario. Eddie's 1 for 3 with a run scored. Single in the 6th went to center field. By the way, our best wishes to young Pirate pitcher Jameson Taillon, who got the diagnosis of testicular cancer, had surgery this week, and a very talented player, and we hope the best for him.
Yeah, that's one of their stars of not only the present but certainly the future. Former #1 draft pick, and we certainly wish him well.
Chopper back to Beck. And there's out number 1. MLB.com at bat is your #1 mobile app for live White Sox baseball. Stay connected with a fully customizable experience and get White Sox home screen icons and app features, as well as game day live game video highlights, radio broadcasts, StatCast, news, and more. Download MLB.com at bat today. You can, in fact, if you want, with the At Bat app, you can watch today's Sox game on one of your devices, yesterday's game or Sunday's game on another device, and a game from earlier this year on another one. You could have 3 Sox games going at once.
Are they considered supported devices?
They are. There are some unsupported devices as well, but it's very difficult.
They don't work as well.
No, tough to get a game on your blender. Escobar with a line drive foul.
One didn't miss by much as Eduardo turned on it. He's a very dependable player. Can play just about anywhere and give you a very good effort, both with the glove and being a switch hitter. Pretty good effort with the bat. And the paw stunned with the turnaround in this game after an early 2-0 lead. The paw's very disappointed in the 7-2 current score.
I think we just hypnotized thousands of people. Look straight into the paw's eyes. In the air, left field, Melky Cabrera. Two down for Jason Castro.
We mentioned David Holmberg earlier in the broadcast as another left-hander to help out Dan Jennings, and now he is getting ready to go.
Beck drops in a strike to Castro, who's 0 for 2 and has reached on a hit by pitch. Abreu at first collects this one and flips to Beck for out number 3. Stretch time in Chicago. Omar will bat. Sierra Santos has a report on him when we come back.
Some pretty notable pups here on the south side. You have Derek Holland, who has his dog Wrigley. You have Jose Abreu with the famous Limbo. And now Omar Narvaez is going to have to think of a name for his new dog. He got a Pomeranian puppy just this morning. Total coincidence with Dog Day. She's a Pomeranian. She's about 1 month old, so she wasn't able to make it to the park tonight because she doesn't have her shots. Omar said he knew she was the one she was going to take home because she started crying. And guys, Steve, Jason, she pooped on him. So that makes total sense that that would be the dog he would take with him.
Well, thanks, Sierra. That's really good if you never want to get fed. But
I thought Sierra, when she said the dog wasn't going to make it to the park, was going to say because the dog can't drive.
True, no license.
Thanks, Sierra. Only on Dog Day will you have a report end with the sentence that one ended with.
It's kind of nice, actually. And Derek Holland's going to have to change the name of his dog to Guaranteed Rate. Hi, little Guaranteed Rate. How you doing?
I missed you a little bit. Not much, but a little. 1-2 on Davidson.
That's because of the cornucopia of college games that you were doing.
Well, he tried.
And that little ping. It's kind of nice.
That sounded a little bit better. To shortstop, Polanco. And there is out number 1. You know, it is interesting, though, going to look at college baseball, because the game is still significantly different than the game being played in Major League Baseball. Quite a few college teams still really like the bunt. They like to get them over, get them in. But there are, and I had TCU a couple weeks ago, Matt Perk's former school, among others, Jason Coates, who was with the Sox last year, and their coaches said, look, we've only bunted, at that point it was 7 times all year, because they're trying to churn out major league players, and so college coaches are watching the trends of the major league game and changing their teaching habits to try to draw some of the bigger name prospects to say, hey, you can go play in the big leagues now.
Well, even the college game changed considerably when they changed the bats.
Yeah, those
From
new
the
BB
straight,
core.
Yeah, straight aluminum bats, where it was, for the most part, it was just slug ball. You're just going up there trying to hit everything out of the park. Now it's more like a normal baseball game. You have a tendency to get some movement as opposed to just waiting and sitting back and waiting for somebody to hit the ball out of the park.
Well, the change in the draft and follow rule also changed the college game, don't you think?
Yeah, it did.
Used to be able to take a guy, have the rights to that player, follow them essentially through the college career, and now that day is gone. Two and two on Tim. And a half-hearted swing for strike 3, so 2 down here in the 7th inning.
That's how you get completely eaten up with a 91-mile-an-hour fastball. He was obviously looking for something else, and by the time he realized it was a fastball, the ball was pretty much in Castro's glove. There you look at some pretty impressive numbers. Just 3 hits, all singles given up. Those hits came in the 3rd inning, where the Sox scored 2 and had a chance to put some more up, but it didn't happen.
Here's Omar for ball number 1. He was the first base runner for the Sox. That was back in the 3rd. He walked and scored in that 2-run 3rd inning. The Sox had the lead 2-0 in this game. Then the Twins have scored 7 unanswered.
That young lady brought her glove, which is a wise thing where she's sitting.
Right over the dugout. Gotta be alert at all times. Pitch number 101 from Santiago is outside, so 3-1.
14,498 and 463 dogs tonight.
That's called strike 3 and 2. That was fun last year when the Sox set the Guinness record for most dogs at a sporting event.
Yeah, right around 5,000 paws, I believe.
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah. Almost 1,200 dogs.
It's outside, ball 4. And Willie Garcia will bat.
Second time that Omar has walked. Again, facing all right-handers. You have a tendency to get a release point and stay there. You mix in the occasional left-hander, and all of a sudden the release point that you were so locked in, you're not all that locked in.
So now back to the right-hander Garcia, and strike 1.
This Twin team this year has had a really good run at it defensively. We talked about the vast improvement in their outfield, but the infield has moved right along under Paul Molitor and his staff. Twins have only made 10 errors all year. That's in 30 games. So they're picking it and helping that pitching staff out.
Which speaks to the stronger start this year. I mean, last year was basically a lost season after 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, the bullpen just disintegrated last year, and there wasn't much you could do. If you can't get people out of the pen and the starters are not going to go all that deep into the game, you've got some problems.
Still have some bullpen injuries this year. Glenn Perkins, Ryan O'Rourke.
So they've had their difficulties, and that's one of the things that the Twins, who are also going through a similar rebuild that the Sox are going through, one of the things they're going to have to address under the new front office is the bullpen. They've got to revamp that if they're going to go anyplace.
Garcia gives it a ride to left field toward the corner, and this is foul.
Tyler Duffy loosening up. When we saw him in Minneapolis, he was throwing the ball pretty well.
That's cute foul. Still 2-2. Sox won't see Minnesota here until August. That'll be the final series between these two teams in this ballpark. Still a couple trips remaining to Target Field. Sox will be in Minnesota in June and August as Garcia takes ball 3, and now Santiago's control is getting a little squirrely here.
Well, you would think that one way or the other, this is going to be the last guy that Hector is going to face. He's about to deliver pitch number 111.
3-2 is inside. It's ball 4. 2 on for Saladino. And we'll see who he is to face.
Well, it's not going to be Hector Santiago as Paul Molitor comes out. He's already motioned to the bullpen. So we're going to see Tyler Duffy. Hector most disappointed in himself, but he did himself proud tonight, throwing a whale of a ball game. As Duffy ready to go. And as he comes in, we'll step out. We'll be back after these messages. Talk podcast presented by Wintrust. It's also available on Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. And our Hyundai call to the pen is Tyler Duffy. On for the 11th time, he's had a real good go of it. Spring training, Bert Blyleven was in uniform for a bit, and he talks to some of the Twin pitchers. And one of the things he said to Duffy was, change your position on the mound, because you want to get a better angle for that breaking ball away to the right-hand hitters. And Duffy did that. He's now on the third base side of the mound, and it's really helped him.
Why does that change the results?
Well, first of all, you're coming from a little more to your right, which means that you're actually, well, if not parallel to the hitter, you're coming from the third base side, and just gives you a better angle. And he's got such a good curveball, he was missing with it. And Bert says, look, if you give yourself more of the plate by moving to your right, you're going to throw strikes more often. And Duffy's curveball's terrific. He just couldn't get it over the plate as consistently as he's getting it over now. And a tip from the man who, number one, is a Hall of Famer, number two, had a great curveball, helped turn things around for Tyler Duffy. So if you have an asset like that, you might well use it.
Yeah, open your ears, listen.
That's exactly right. And Bert is a good man to listen to. He knows his craft, and it got him 60 shutouts and a designation in Cooperstown.
But you've seen it time and again. If you're closed-minded, doesn't matter how good the advice is, it's not gonna go.
Best thing to do, if this is your profession, is talk to as many people as you can about what you do. Because if you talk to them for 20 minutes and they give you one sentence that you never heard before, it helps you get better.
It's a breaking ball outside and low. 3-2 on Saladino with Melky on deck in a 5-run game. Narvaez and Willie Garcia both walked. And now Saladino, who has a career high both walk and strikeout rate this year so far, is on the fringe of both. 3-2. Fastball for strike 3. Sox leave 2. Minnesota still leads 7-2.
eClick is located in Chicagoland and is rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. eClick Lending. Boom! Your mortgage just happened. Oh, I love those sound effects. And we got a new pitcher coming in the ball game. It is David Holmberg. Those are Charlotte numbers. They were pretty good down there. Getting an opportunity here to be the second left-hander out of the bullpen, and so he'll deal with the bottom part of the order, hoping to hold him right there.
David Holmberg with the rare Charlotte quinella. He was born and raised in Port Charlotte, Florida, and has played this year for AAA Charlotte in the White Sox organization. Do with that what you will. So Holmberg, third man out of the bullpen tonight. And a hook for a strike. To the former Giant, A-Ray Adrianza, who was picked up by the Brewers in the offseason, then put on waivers and claimed by Minnesota, so never played a game with Milwaukee and ended up here with the Twins. On the ground back to Holmberg, and there is out number 1. Sox fans, StubHub is your ticket to once-in-a-lifetime experiences, from Chicago White Sox games to amazing concerts and shows you don't want to miss. StubHub, your ticket out. StubHub, the official fan-to-fan ticket marketplace of the Chicago White Sox. We had a visitor during the break. The Chicago native, highly thought of Chicago former resident Corey Probus stopped by.
And he came in because he knew that there was only one place in the entire ballpark that he could get what he was looking for.
He came in, the Twins radio voice, Corey Probus, if you don't know, he's a Chicagoland native. He came in looking like he was going to hold up the booth. He had the hat on, he was one step away from ski mask, and he took our Hawk alarm clock.
He did. He wanted to use that for something. Maybe
trying to wake up the engineer.
Maybe to wake him up in the bottom of the 8th.
Oh, nice job on 2 strikes by Buxton to deliver that base hit to right.
That probably will delight Paul Molitor, because Buxton, who is a dead pull hitter, if he starts to go to right or right center field, he's going to get out of himself what is in there but has not been brought out to this point. You saw him reach out, keep his head down on the ball, and just flick the ball into right field.
First 3-hit game of the year for Buxton, just his second multi-hit game of the year. And we've seen a lot of Buxton the last couple of seasons. That's as good of a sign at the plate as we've seen in person, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because, I mean, he did get a couple of hits early, but he pulled the ball, which is something that he's been able to do his entire career. The fact that he is going to right and right center field for him is a very good sign.
Here's one thing that Sox fans are not going to really enjoy hearing. Byron Buxton has 5 career 3-hit games now. 4 of them have come against the White Sox.
Well, he's the new Ryan Rayburn, apparently.
We don't need another Ryan Rayburn.
But we have one.
We have
In
Ryan
Charlotte.
Rayburn.
We have the Ryan Rayburn.
You think the Twins would part with Buxton?
To this point, they have resisted all of the temptations to part with Buxton, because they realize when the light turns on, and it will, he's going to be not a good player, he's going to be a great player. And right now he can win you baseball games with his glove, because in center field, when he's there, very little falls alley to alley. So you're talking about one of the fastest men in baseball playing a key position in center field, just trying to get consistency swinging the bat. And if tonight is any indication, the light will start to turn on sooner rather than later. But he's had enough opportunities at this point to be able to figure it out.
But again, he's another one of those guys. And Avi Garcia's in the same boat in the Sox dugout. You've seen him for years now, but they're still in their early to mid-20s. Avi 25, Buxton 23.
No, and that's, nobody can tell you when the light is going to turn on. It just doesn't work that way, except someday it will, and all of a sudden all the pitchers who had been taking advantage of him in that nose-to-toe strike zone that he's had, when he stops swinging at just about everything and gets selective, the sky's the limit as far as his talent is concerned, because there's not one thing he can't do.
3-2, 1 out. We'll see if Buxton goes. He does, and Saladino has no play at second because of it. 2 down for Polanco.
And even in a 5-run game, Paul Molitor does the right thing because Mauer does make contact. And the inning would be over. It's not. The inning stays alive, and get a chance for Polanco, who's also had a big night, to have another at bat, this time from the right side.
2 for 4 so far for Jorge Polanco. He now has 10 hits and 29 at bats against the Sox this year. And he takes strike 1. Holmberg is not afraid to throw breaking stuff or off-speed stuff. First pitch.
No, that's really his game because he's not overpowering. Very few hitters are going to swing at anything rolling, anything breaking, or anything off speed on the first pitch.
Came inside to get the pop-up, and Omar is on the case. He makes the catch, and there is out number 3. Buxton's single does not hurt. We'll play bottom 8, 7-2, Sox down. Wait, did they kidnap Chuck? Where'd Chuck go?
Could very well be. Well, this is past his bedtime, so that's one of the reasons why he was not there. But thank you, and we'll move on.
He's doing the post-game show.
No.
Really? Going to sleep for a little while?
Yeah, they got to wake him up to do the post-game show.
Strike 1 to Melky. 7-2 your score. Twins with the lead with the last 7 runs in this game after the Sox scored twice in the 3rd. And Melky in the air to right field for Kepler.
Thursday on CSN, the White Sox wrap up the series versus these Twins. First pitch is at 7. Or you can stream the game live on NBC Sports app or at csnchicago.com.
That'll be right before the Padres come to town. A couple of fireworks displays this weekend at the ballpark. Hopefully some warmer weather. Family
I'd like to
Sunday.
think so.
Yeah.
It's got to be warmer than this.
Seems a little late to be this chilly. But such is life. Strike 1 to Abreu, who is going for his 11th 2-hit game in his last 17. He's 1 for 2 tonight. He's hitting the ball very hard right now.
Yeah, he's really been on just about everything. And when Jose, like most hitters, well, first of all, he's more talented than most hitters, but like most hitters, when he stays in the strike zone and he's in a streak like this, it's very difficult to get him out. Or if you do get him out, it's going to be because he hit the ball very hard at somebody.
That ball is hammered and rescued by Escobar for out number 2.
And there's an example of hitting the ball very hard, but at somebody. As Eduardo makes a nice play to his right, a one-hop rocket, and he robs Jose of a double. This ball scalded Escobar right there, and then got a big enough arm to pour it across to get him.
So Jose may have to settle for 1 for 3 tonight as Avi comes up and looks for his first hit. That ball, according to StatCast, officially 100 miles an hour off Abreu's bat. I mean, you think about it, right? You got Escobar at third. He's 90 feet away.
In this case, he was probably 100 feet away, 10 feet and back to the bag. Yep. But it's coming at you pretty quick.
Not an easy position to play, and well done by Escobar. Two strikes on Avi. Duffy still hasn't thrown a ball out of the zone through the 3 batters here in the 8th. 1-1. I had the first one as a strike. I was wrong. 1-2.
I'm going to predict that if we do enough games, you'll probably miss one more.
You think maybe
the rest of the year?
I was trying to do physics. The ball to third. 1-2 is outside.
Duffy's curveball tonight has been as we've seen all year. It's been pretty close to unhittable. Looks like he's going to throw another one. Let's see where he gets it.
There it is. Check swing, and he didn't go.
He dropped his arm angle there, a little more sidearm, meaning a lot more break. And Avi was able to check his swing, something that last year he probably wouldn't have been able to do. And there's the sinker.
Stayed up.
Yeah, sinkers that are belt high don't usually work very well, and Avi was able to get a good swing, but he fouled it straight back.
Three and two from Duffy in back of Santiago. And that is called strike 3. Nice pitch to Ace Avi in a 1-2-3 8th inning for the Twins reliever. 7-2 to the 9th. All Minnesota tonight after the third inning. The Twins with 12 hits as the Sox try to avoid going under 500. Coming in 15 up, 15 down. Cleveland has won tonight when shutout against Toronto. So the Indians now 18-14. Sox with a loss would be 2.5 back to first place Cleveland.
Those Torontos are really scuffling. 12-21. They really dug themselves into a pretty substantial hole.
Abreu with the flip to Holmberg, and there's out number 1.
Just like we promised you earlier in the game, it's Miller time, brought to you by Miller Lite. Here's our Miller Moments, and it's Adrianza driving in a pair. Buxton, one of his 3 hits, driving in another run. And Joe Mauer driving this ball into left field to drive home yet another run. So it was a big 4-run 6th inning, and that really tells the tale of this game. That's our Miller Moments.
Vargas had himself a moment before that with a 2-run homer off of Mike Pelfrey in the 4th. And on Toronto, we're talking about the American League East. Problem there is not only have they dug themselves a hole, that's a 3-headed division. Looks like there are going to be 3 teams in play for the postseason at least in the East.
And Tampa Bay is not really a soft touch this year. They come into play tonight, a couple of games under 500, but the division is loaded. Wasn't too long ago when the American League East, year after year after year, was by far the toughest division in the American League. And it appears that this year they're getting back to that point with the resurgence of the Yankees. Baltimore looking good, although they got some terrible news today as Zach Britton is going to be lost for at least a couple of months and maybe longer, putting a lot of pressure on Brad Brock, who is the de facto closer in the absence of Britton.
He's got good stuff.
He's got very good stuff, but he's been a lifetime setup man. He had 3 saves his entire life heading into this year. Now he's been very good this year, but you never know over the long haul how that's going to affect his arm or going to affect his psyche. In the meantime, that bullpen, supported by a tremendous offense, they're going to be really tough, but they're going to miss Britton.
Anderson at short settles himself and throws out Vargas for out number 2.
Taylor Rogers loosening in the pen. Duffy threw the ball very well. It looks like he will depart this one, but having acquitted himself in relief of Hector Santiago, Duffy threw it real well. A couple of strikeouts in the 4 men he faced.
Lefty with Rosario for ball 1 from Holmberg. He made his Sox debut in Kansas City on that road trip, a 10-gamer. To Detroit, Kansas City, and Baltimore. Well, a lot of the same faces as we've seen the last couple of years from Minnesota. Some changes, but some stalwarts, and it is a changed clubhouse, it seems.
Well, Paul Molitor, who's a short-time manager and really learning how to do it, he's got himself at least the bare bones of a pretty nice baseball team. He's got some young players who look like they're on the verge of putting it together. They've got a couple of guys from their minor leagues that will be here in the not-too-distant future, and they've got some thunder in that lineup. Sano's hitting .300. If you missed it, he's suspended for a game. Tonight was the game he sat. But they had played 29 games coming into this one. And Miguel Sano at 28 driven in with his 8 home runs and a .300 batting average.
Well, that swing is not going to go into the Eddie Rosario yearbook. Dust yourself off and try again tomorrow. Baseball.
Johnson, who reminds you to have some fun. Always something to bear in mind. Plan your next trip today at travelwisconsin.com. And here it is, the Twins, for 2 more before the Padres come in over the weekend, and it's on the road again. Oh, anyway, yes, we go on the road after that. So that is our Wisconsin upcoming schedule, and got a new pitcher coming in the ball game. It is Taylor Rogers. On for the 15th time. He's been a very busy man. ERA a little higher than he would like, and a 1-1 record. He's got pretty good stuff with 8 strikeouts and 9 1/3, and he inherits a 5-run lead with 3 outs to go.
When's your birthday? A couple months, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna get you a pitch pipe.
Oh, I need a bunch of those, or a substitute singer.
I like the idea that 3 or 4 pitch pipes could really help you.
They would definitely help.
The strike to Frazier, who walked in the 4th and hit 2 balls in the air for his 2 outs tonight. On the ground at third, and Escobar. We're out number 1. Series continues tomorrow and then Thursday here at the ballpark. And here's what you'll see.
Good matchup tomorrow night. Their ace, Phil Hughes, Derek Holland, who's thrown it exceptionally well, and then it's Nick Tepesch. You might remember him from the Texas Rangers against Miguel Gonzalez, who had a tough time out last time, but has a very good year going.
Now Davidson, or strike one, mentioned that Matt Davidson was featured in a piece on the White Sox website on whitesox.com in his own words about his career and his season, being up with the Sox full time this year. And one of the first things he said was he's just been taking pictures everywhere the Sox go, so when his kids are older, got a couple kids now, they're able to know exactly what Dad did when he was playing Major League Baseball.
That's really kind of nice.
Oh, 2. Now 1-2. Sox led in this game 2-0 after 3. Then the Twins put up 3 in the 4th and 4 in the 6th. That's strike 3 called on Davidson. And so 6 in a row retired by the Twins bullpen.
Pretty good pitch at a part of the plate. So Rogers thrown it pretty well. Duffy threw it exceptionally well in his inning and a third, and Hector Santiago went 6 2/3, gave up only 3 hits, a couple of runs, walked 5, fanned 6.
2 out for Tim Anderson, and strike 1 at the very edge to Tim, who's 0 for 3. On the ground past Bauer.
Tim's hit the ball hard twice tonight. This one shoots it by Mauer, who is playing well wide of the bag and keeps things alive.
It'll be Omar Narvaez, who's been on twice tonight. A couple of walks for Omar. Scored a run in that 2-run third. Strike 1.
Tim takes second base, and it goes as a fielder's choice. And they chose to do nothing.
The only game in which you can score indifference.
This is it.
Ball and a strike. Now to breaking ball, now 1-2. That is a rare swing at a ball out of the zone that much by Narvaez.
Omar's got, if he doesn't have the best eye in the club, he's in the top 2. He's got a really nice command of the strike zone. And he has drawn a couple of walks here tonight.
There's strike 3, and this game has come to an end. Minnesota, a 7-2 winner over the Sox tonight in the series opener.
It looked really good early, but unfortunately, the Twins, who have been playing good baseball, poured it on, and they had a big inning in the 4th, a big inning in the 6th, and that was it as Hector Santiago outdueled Mike Pelfrey. So we'll be right back at it tomorrow night, and I will see you then.
Sounds good, Stoney. Look forward to it. So for our director, Jim Angio, our producer, Keon Dolashaki, our associate producer, Dave Ross, tech manager, Mark Harper, and the executive producer of White Sox Baseball on CSN Chicago, Jim Corno Jr. He's Steve Stone. I'm Jason Benetti saying so long on behalf of our entire crew from Guaranteed Rate Field. Coming up next, Subaru Postgame Live. You've been watching Chicago White Sox Baseball on CSN. Good night.